A locked house. Barricaded doors. Two people inside who stopped answering their phones days ago. When the silence was finally broken, the truth was worse than anyone imagined. This documentary is presented for educational and informational purposes only. All analysis is based on publicly available records, court documents, and reporting. No claims are made beyond established legal findings. Interpretations discussed are analytical observations, not accusations. On the evening of February 6, 2025, Terry Utton stood outside a home on 15th Street in Baycliff, Texas. He had been calling for 2 days. No one answered. The windows were covered. Every door was locked from the inside. Terry was not a stranger. He had known the woman who lived there, Tammy King, for more than 40 years. In the last 6 months, they had become romantically involved. She was raising her 17-year-old granddaughter, Tara. Terry had watched that girl grow up. Now, neither of them would pick up the phone. He called the Galveston County Sheriff's Office. Deputies arrived, but explained they could not force entry without legal cause. Terry made a decision. He broke the glass on the back door and reached inside to unlock it. The door would not open. Something heavy had been pushed against it. A dryer. A mattress. Furniture stacked to block the entrance. Terry moved to the bathroom window. He climbed through with the help of a picnic table. Deputies waited outside. Less than a minute later, Terry came back out through the front door. His face told them everything. Tammy King was inside. She was lying on her bed. Blankets had been piled over her body. She had been shot in the head. Based on the condition of the scene, investigators believed she had been dead for at least a day, possibly longer. The house was empty. No one else was inside. Tara and her boyfriend, 18-year-old Uriah Urick, were gone. When investigators entered the property, they found more than a crime scene. They found chaos. The living room was in disarray. Firearms were scattered across the floor and sofa. Guns had been pulled from their storage locations and left out in the open. Some had been placed back. Others were missing entirely. Tammy's late husband, Butch King, had operated a gun shop. After his death, much of the inventory passed to her. The house contained rifles, handguns, and ammunition stored in safes, closets, and containers. Some safes were locked. Others had been opened and emptied. Cash was on the floor. A white purse with a small bloodstain sat in the living room. Investigators believed it had been moved from the bedroom after the shooting. In the kitchen, dirty dishes were piled in the sink. Old food sat out on the counter. The back door had been barricaded with the dryer and mattress Terry encountered. The front door had also been blocked, though Terry removed those items to let deputies in. Windows throughout the house were obscured. Whoever killed Tammy King did not want her found quickly. In Tara's bedroom, the scene was worse. Clothes covered the floor. Trash bags filled with half-eaten Taco Bell and other takeout sat in corners. The smell was overwhelming. Water bottles filled with urine were on the desk. Under the desk was a makeshift sleeping area with blankets and pillows. Prescription pill bottles were scattered throughout the room. All of them had Tammy King's name on the label. In Tammy's bedroom, investigators found 2 live rounds of ammunition. One was on a pile of clothing. The other was on the floor. Under the bed, they recovered a spent shell casing. It was a .556 caliber round. The gun that fired it was not in the house. Terry Utton told investigators the last time he spoke with Tammy was Wednesday night around 10 o'clock. It was now Friday. 48 hours had passed with no response to calls or texts. He reached out to Tammy's son, Christopher King. Christopher was Tara's father. He also had not heard from his mother or daughter in days. He gave Terry permission to break into the house. Tammy had been widowed years earlier when her husband Butch passed away. Terry's wife, Sandy, had also died. Sandy and Butch were siblings. The two couples had been close for decades. After losing their spouses, Tammy and Terry grew closer. By 2025, they were in a committed relationship. Terry was also close with Tara. She was his great niece. He had known her since she was a child. In recent years, however, things had changed. Tara had become withdrawn. She clashed with her grandmother regularly. She stopped attending school entirely. Her behavior at home became combative. The tension escalated when she began dating Uriah Urick. Tammy welcomed Uriah into her home first. Family members describe her as loving and supportive. She set boundaries. Uriah had a curfew of 10 o'clock each night. He was expected to go home. The rules were not always followed. Terry admitted he sometimes heard noises coming from Tara's room after Uriah was supposed to be gone. He never checked. He assumed the teenagers wanted privacy. By February 2025, the relationship between Tammy and Tara had deteriorated. Tara spent most of her time with Uriah. Neither of them had jobs. Neither had a driver's license. They stayed at the house almost constantly. Arguments erupted over everything. School attendance, hygiene, the overnight curfew. Tammy was frustrated, but remained committed to raising her granddaughter responsibly. Now both teenagers were missing. The house was ransacked. Guns and money were gone. Tammy was dead. Within hours of discovering Tammy's body, the Galveston County Sheriff's Office issued a public plea for information. The case spread quickly on social media. Tips began coming in. One call came from a young man named Rigo. He told investigators he picked up Tara and Uriah from Tammy's house on the afternoon of February 5th. That was the day after investigators believed Tammy had been killed. Rigo said the couple gave no indication anything was wrong. They did not mention a burglary. They did not mention a murder. They simply asked for a ride. A neighbor across the street from Tammy's house had security cameras. Footage from February 5th showed two people moving in and out of the backyard. They carried trash bags. Shortly after, a black sedan backed into the driveway. The car belonged to Rigo. He told investigators that Uriah called him while he was driving to the address. Uriah instructed him to stay on the phone until he arrived. Rigo thought this was odd, but did not question it. When he pulled up, Uriah told him to back into the driveway. The couple loaded items into his trunk. Rigo drove them to a parking lot where they met another friend, a young man named Christian. Christian worked nearby. He offered to help them. In exchange, the couple said they would pay him in cash or guns. Both Rigo and Christian were told the same story. Tara and Uriah were fleeing an abusive household. Tammy King, they claimed, had been physically and emotionally abusive. They needed help escaping. Neither friend questioned the story. Tara and Uriah posted on social media, asking their network for assistance. They described their situation as urgent. They provided no proof. Christian allowed the couple to stay in a spare room at his apartment. They stayed for 2 nights. Christian later told police they seemed paranoid. They repeatedly claimed police were at the door. They asked him to drive them to Walmart, where they purchased boxes of hair dye. On February 7th, Christian came home from work and found the couple gone. They left behind their small black dog, Salem, with a neighbor. They also left behind firearms, ammunition, and prescription pill bottles with Tammy's name partially visible on torn labels. In the bathroom, investigators found evidence the couple had cut and dyed their hair. It appeared they were trying to change their appearance before leaving the area. If you're finding this investigation compelling, consider subscribing to Silent Evidence. We examine cases like this with the depth they deserve. 3 days after Tammy King's body was discovered, Tara King and Uriah Urick were arrested at a Dollar General in Laredo, Texas. Laredo sits on the Mexican border, more than 5 hours south of Galveston County. After leaving Christian's apartment, the couple hitched a ride with a 35-year-old man named Travis Hodge. Travis was a drug dealer. He accepted money from the teenagers for the ride. He also sold them methamphetamine. As they traveled, Uriah began sharing information. Travis grew increasingly uncomfortable. He later testified that Uriah told him about the death of Tammy King. At first, Uriah claimed it was self-defense. Later, he mentioned the position of the body. Travis understood what that meant. This was not self-defense. This was murder. Travis asked Uriah about the guns the couple was carrying. Uriah confirmed that one of them was the murder weapon. Travis wanted out. He dropped the teenagers at a motel. Before they parted ways, Tara and Uriah gave him 2 firearms. They could not continue traveling with them. Travis placed the guns in a storage unit. Investigators later retrieved both weapons. One of them, an AR-556 rifle, was matched to the bullet casing found under Tammy King's bed. Tara and Uriah were taken into custody and transported back to Galveston County. They were held pending trial. The truth behind Tammy King's murder did not come from witness testimony alone. It came from the teenager's own words. Investigators obtained access to Tara and Uriah's Instagram messages. The conversations revealed months of planning. The couple had been discussing killing Tammy for weeks before they acted. In mid-January, less than a month before the murder, Tara wrote about an argument with her grandmother. She said she wanted to confront Tammy but stopped herself. She wrote that she knew Uriah wanted Tammy gone right away. Uriah responded that he did not want to kill Tammy if it would ruin their lives. He added that he hated her. Days later, Tara wrote that she had nearly shot her grandmother during a panic attack. She said she stopped because she thought Uriah might regret it later. She then added that she wanted to kill Tammy herself. 10 days before the murder, Tara told Uriah she had been tempted to stab her grandmother to death. Uriah advised against using a knife. He said Tammy might fight back. He suggested they do it together. He wrote that he would disable Tammy first, then give Tara a weapon. He ended the message with a smiley face. The messages continued up to the day Tammy died. One of Uriah's final texts read, "We ride at dawn." After the murder, the couple recorded videos on their phones. The footage showed them packing bags, grabbing prescription pills, and taking firearms from the house. They also took Tammy's bank cards. Transaction records from Tara's Cash App account revealed another layer to the crime. Multiple attempts were made to transfer money from Tammy's accounts immediately after the murder. At first, they tried moving $10,000 at a time. When that failed, they made smaller transfers. $200, $350. On the morning of February 6th, one of Tammy's bank accounts was successfully linked to Tara's app. This gave her full access to the funds. Records from before Tammy's death showed a different pattern. Tammy regularly sent small amounts of money to Tara. $50 for a phone case. $30 for takeout. She never refused reasonable requests. Tammy was raising her granddaughter on a fixed income. She owned her home. She had savings accounts and bank cards. After her husband Butch died, she inherited assets from his gun shop business. This included inventory with significant value. Tara had access to some of these resources through her grandmother's generosity. What she did not have was unrestricted access. She could not move large sums without permission. She could not sell firearms from the inventory. She could not make decisions about the estate. In the messages between Tara and Uriah, they frequently discussed the valuables inside the house. They mentioned antique coins. They mentioned cash hidden in safes. They mentioned guns that could be sold. This suggests the murder was not purely about independence or escaping rules. It was also about access to resources they believed they were entitled to. Uriah had no legal claim to anything in the house. His access depended entirely on his relationship with Tara. If Tammy enforced stricter boundaries or ended the relationship, he would lose access to both Tara and the resources inside that home. This dynamic created a financial incentive structure. Tammy's death would remove the barrier to accessing those resources. It would also eliminate the authority figure who could separate them. Tara King stopped attending school in the months before the murder. This was not a brief absence. It was a pattern of truancy that went on for weeks. In Texas, compulsory education laws require minors to attend school. When a student stops showing up, the school district is obligated to investigate. Truancy can trigger interventions from school counselors, social workers, or even juvenile courts. There is no public record of such interventions in Tara's case. It is unclear whether the school district contacted Tammy King. It is unclear whether any agency attempted to assess the situation at home. If Tara had been brought before a truancy court, a judge may have ordered counseling or family services. A social worker may have visited the home and observed the dynamics between Tammy, Tara, and Uriah. These interventions would not have prevented the murder with certainty, but they may have created opportunities for de-escalation. The same question applies to the couple's drug use. Travis Hodge testified that he sold methamphetamine to Uriah on multiple occasions before the murder. If Uriah was using drugs regularly, Where was he obtaining them? Were there signs of substance abuse visible to others? Substance abuse among teenagers often comes with behavioral changes. Paranoia, aggression, poor hygiene. All of these were present in Tara and Uriah's case. The filth in Tara's bedroom, the bottles of urine, the paranoia they displayed at Christian's apartment. These were not subtle indicators. Yet no intervention occurred. No teacher flagged the situation. No family member outside the home intervened beyond Terry's occasional encouragement for Tammy to be lenient with curfew. Tammy King was left to manage a deteriorating situation on her own. This does not mean others are responsible for her death. The responsibility lies with the individuals who planned and carried out the murder. However, it does raise questions about the systems designed to identify at-risk youth before crises occur. Uriah Urick went to trial in November 2025. He was charged with capital murder. In Texas, capital murder includes killings committed during the course of another felony, such as robbery. Prosecutors argued that Uriah and Tara planned the murder to steal money, guns, and other valuables from Tammy's home. The Instagram messages, the videos, and the financial transactions all supported this theory. The state called Terry Utton to the stand. He described the last night he spoke with Tammy. She had messaged him about her frustrations with Tara. He believed it was normal teenage angst. He never imagined what was being planned. Terry also testified about hearing noises from Tara's room after Uriah's curfew. He admitted he never checked because he wanted to give them privacy. The prosecutor did not press him on this. The defense used it to suggest Terry was aware the rules were being broken, but did not consider the situation dangerous. Travis Hodge testified as part of a plea deal. He agreed to 10 years in prison for his role in helping the teenagers escape and for drug and gun charges. He told the jury that Uriah admitted the killing was not self-defense once he mentioned the position of the body. He also confirmed that Uriah identified one of the guns as the murder weapon. The defense did not deny that Uriah killed Tammy King. His attorney admitted Uriah pulled the trigger. However, the defense argued this was not capital murder. It was not a robbery. It was a misguided attempt by two immature teenagers to escape what they perceived as an oppressive situation. The defense described Uriah as an 18-year-old who made the worst decision of his life. They argued he and Tara were naive and influenced by drugs. They wanted to play at being adults, but were not prepared for the consequences. The defense pointed to Tara's request to bring her stuffed animals as evidence they were not prepared for adult life. They argued the teenagers killed Tammy because they wanted to be adults, not to rob her. The prosecution countered that Tammy King died because she had to be a parent, and they wanted to be adults without earning it. They called this argument disrespectful to Tammy King's life and memory. After 3.5 hours of deliberation, the jury returned a guilty verdict on the charge of capital murder. The conviction carries an automatic sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole. After their arrest, Tara King and Uriah Urick claimed they were fleeing an abusive environment. They told friends Tammy had been physically and emotionally abusive to both of them. They posted these claims on social media. They asked their network for help. No evidence supported these allegations. Family members described Tammy as loving and patient. Her home had always been a place of acceptance. She welcomed Uriah when Tara began dating him. She set boundaries, but those boundaries were reasonable. A 10 o'clock curfew. Rules about overnight stays. There was no evidence of physical abuse. No police reports. No hospital visits. No witnesses. What did exist was evidence of escalating tension. Tara resented her grandmother's authority. Uriah resented the restrictions placed on their relationship. Both wanted independence without the responsibilities that came with it. In their messages, the teenagers never mentioned abuse. They mentioned wanting money. They mentioned wanting guns. They mentioned wanting to be together without interference. The claim of abuse was a story they invented after the murder to gain sympathy and assistance from friends. It worked temporarily. Rigo gave them a ride. Christian gave them shelter. Both believed they were helping teenagers escape danger. The truth was different. Tammy King was doing what any responsible guardian would do. She was setting boundaries. She was trying to keep her granddaughter in school. She was trying to navigate a difficult period in Tara's adolescence. The arguments in the weeks before her death were not unusual for a household with a teenager. Curfews, school attendance, hygiene. These are common sources of conflict. Tammy handled them with frustration, yes, but also with patience and continued financial support. She did not deserve what happened to her. We're approaching the resolution of this case. If this type of analysis is valuable to you, subscribing to Silent Evidence helps us continue investigating cases like this one. Tara King has pleaded not guilty. At the time of this production, her trial is scheduled for January 2026. She faces the same capital murder charge as Uriah Urick. The evidence against her is substantial. The Instagram messages show she was an active participant in planning the murder. She attempted to transfer money from her grandmother's accounts immediately after the killing. She fled with Uriah and participated in efforts to avoid detection. However, Tara was 17 at the time of the murder. This places her in a different legal category than Uriah. Juveniles can be tried as adults in Texas for serious offenses, but sentencing guidelines differ. Life without parole is still possible, but not automatic. Tara's defense team may argue diminished capacity due to her age. They may argue she was influenced or coerced by Uriah. They may argue the lack of a functional support system contributed to her actions. The prosecution will likely use the same evidence presented in Uriah's trial: the messages, the videos, the financial transactions. They will argue Tara was not a passive participant. She was an active planner who wanted her grandmother dead. One message stands out. 10 days before the murder, Tara wrote that she had been tempted to stab Tammy to death. This was not Uriah's idea. This was Tara's impulse. Uriah talked her out of using a knife and suggested they act together. This complicates any argument that Tara was simply following Uriah's lead. The messages show she had her own murderous thoughts. She had her own reasons for wanting Tammy gone. The outcome of Tara's trial will determine whether both teenagers spend their lives in prison or whether her age and circumstances result in a different sentence. Tammy King's family released a statement after Uriah's conviction. They described her as a woman of love, kindness, and strength. They said her memory is a source of comfort and inspiration. Tammy was 61 years old when she died. She had been widowed after decades of marriage. She had taken on the responsibility of raising her teenage granddaughter. She had found new love with Terry Utton. By all accounts, she was doing her best. She set boundaries. She provided financial support. She welcomed Tara's boyfriend into her home while maintaining reasonable rules. Her death was not the result of a moment of panic or a sudden fight. It was planned. It was discussed for weeks. It was carried out with the intention of gaining access to money and property. Tammy King was killed because she stood in the way of two teenagers who wanted independence without earning it. She was killed because she enforced rules they resented. She was killed because she had assets they wanted. Her legacy is not defined by how she died. It is defined by how she lived. She raised children. She supported her family. She opened her home. She loved freely. That is what should be remembered. The case of Tammy King is not complicated from an evidentiary standpoint. The digital messages establish premeditation. The forensic evidence confirms the weapon. The financial records establish motive. The testimony of multiple witnesses places Tara and Uriah at the scene and documents their flight. What makes this case worth examining is not the mystery of who committed the crime. It is the question of why two teenagers believed murder was a reasonable solution to their problems. They were not facing homelessness. They were not in immediate danger. They were facing the ordinary frustrations of adolescence. Rules, expectations, limits on their freedom. Rather than wait, rather than negotiate, rather than leave when they turned 18, they chose violence. This raises uncomfortable questions about impulsivity, entitlement, and the influence of unchecked resentment. It also raises questions about the systems designed to intervene before teenagers reach this point. Tammy King is gone. Uriah Urick will spend his life in prison. Tara King faces the same possibility. 3 lives destroyed because 2 people could not tolerate being told no. The evidence is clear. The outcome is final. What remains is the question of what, if anything, could have been done differently. That question has no simple answer. What is clear is this: Tammy King deserved better. She deserved the chance to see her granddaughter grow up. She deserved to enjoy her newfound happiness with Terry. She deserved the peaceful life she had worked to build. Instead, her life was taken by the two people she had opened her home to. The evidence has been presented. The verdicts have been delivered. But the loss remains. This is silent evidence. Thank you for watching.